say that a couple dozen times a day. And I'm both anchor and I'm a reporter. And whenever I'm out in the field, you'll see me with two things in my hands. That's going to be my reporter's notebook. About to be my reporter's notebook. And I always have a pencil behind my ear. Taekwondo notebook. So I feel naked. Well, all teachers should get free Taekwondo notebook. I feel naked without them. So that's why I have them here to give me confidence and focus. So one of my favorite people on the planet is UVA's Larry Sadler. I'm a political junkie. I just love the guy. And he has kind of patented saying, and that is, politics is a good thing. You bet your sweet baby it is. It's important. I'm a Virginia native. I grew up in Chesapeake, Hampton Roads, and I've worked in Hampton Roads, Harrisonburg, Roanoke, Denver, and now here. And the smaller the media market, the more local news you get, especially when it comes to supervisors, city councilors, school boards. And part of it is because we don't have the rape and pillage and murder of larger cities. Well, as we're seeing now, that's not holding true for all small cities in America. But the journalists, daily papers, are struggling. This is something that's very important, and I'm proud to be part of this. It's important, and we're here to make it important. And I'm just really pleased at the turnout. I think this is something to be proud of. So, this is an important day. I don't think I have to say what this day commemorates. You've seen it in print, online, on the internet. 9/11 is when Americans came together. And I think a lot of you know that we have a lot of division right now. So in light of that, in remembrance of those who fought so hard on 9/11, let's all come together. This is what America is about. You have a voice, you have a vote, and you have questions. So that's why we're here. And on that note, let's have a moment of silence. Folk here in Crozet. By the way, I live here right in Crozet area. Love it. One of the smartest decisions I ever made. We will hold applause for 2 times only. That is at the end of each of the individual debates. Also, be really careful about the noise. If you drop a pen, we can hear it up here. And I think you guys probably can too. And then of course, and I'm going to say right now, I don't expect this. But should it be someone who's frustrated and has something to say that they should bite their tongue, that's part of the rules. We're going to be civil. And no signs, no interruptions. Again, I'm confident that these are empty words. The questions are going to be chosen at random, and they will be asked by the panelists. And Joann Timer is the one who is going to give you the warnings. We will have 2-minute introductions from each of you. And then you will get 1 minute to answer the question. You get a warning at 30 seconds. Correct. And then I will let you know when it's really getting close. And you've got like 10, 15 seconds left. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys to say who introduces themselves first, because I know you flip the coin as to who gets the first question. So should we maybe do that with who gets to introduce themselves?
Thank you all very much. Good evening. Thank you, organizers, for bringing us here today. And thank you all for being here to bring your questions. What does being a supervisor mean to me? My commitment to serve local government and respect for constituents began before I ran for office. Over 20 years, I learned about process and expertise on topics. Prior to being elected, I studied, spoke at board meetings, and advocated about issues. I have a record. It is not just about showing up at meetings and deciding things. As teachers spend more time in preparation than in teaching a lesson, I spend more time proofing minutes, studying the agenda packet, and asking questions as I do in meetings. September 6th meeting was very short, about 7 hours. This spring, there were more than 50 meeting hours during budget season. Today, I serve on 10 local committees, including transportation and water. I serve on 11 state and federal committees, from veterans to arts, energy, environment, land use, and emerging chemicals. This is all a part of the job. To do this job well, one must be all in, and I am. What does that mean? I'm available. I connect people to the county staff who can find solutions and answer technical questions, answer the phone, evenings and weekends, as many people work weekdays but still have problems that impact their lives and properties. I meet with residents in person, visit sites with staff and agency personnel, for example, BDOT and DEQ. Accessible, I'm available in the grocery store, by email and phone. I seek answers, find out the truth, and learn what can be done. Experienced, I build connections at all levels of government to get answers and results. Reliable, I have a record of comments, presentations,
10 seconds.
I respect my community and residents of all perspectives. We all learn from each other and become a little wiser because of it. Thank you all for coming tonight. I look forward to your questions.
Hey, Brett Rykal. Rykal rhymes with pickle. I'm not a politician. I chose to run as an independent for this race very purposefully, and I think I'm doing something right because Republicans think I'm Democrat, and Democrat thinks I'm Republican, so I'm onto something there. But it's reasonable to say, what's my experience, because I haven't been doing this job. So here's my experience. I was in the U.S. Army, 2 tours to Iraq. I led troops, we accomplished missions, I returned them home safely. I was a chief operating officer for a private company in the defense sector. Managed budgets, negotiated with the government, and importantly, got the work done we were tasked to do. My experience is in getting things done. Conversely, I think we're tired of hearing excuses of why things that have been listened to and planned for aren't getting done around here. And these excuses sound compelling. Supervisor Mallek is one of the most polished politicians you will ever come across in your life. I'm running because Crozet is my home. My kids go to the schools, we play at the parks, I sit in the gridlock traffic with you all, and I so desperately want to make our community safer. I have skipped the game. That makes a big impact on the decisions you make, because decisions look different if you live here or if you live 30 minutes away. The Army has a motto, and I thought that was appropriate for tonight. This we will defend. Because I suppose that's why I'm running. Crozet. If you choose to elect me, I promise together we will. Thank you.
Okay, and now it is time for the questions. And by the way, our panelists are Bill O'Malley, Elizabeth Foreman, and Joann McDermid. That's playing a role as well.
Thank you. Good evening. So the first question, we're going to start with Supervisor Mallek, and we'll just alternate candidates in each question as we go through. Both candidates will answer the same question, and then we'll go to a different question. So Supervisor Mallek, this is a long one. The Crozet Master Plan puts forth 3 pillars for growth: create a multimodal transportation network, support and strengthen Crozet's history as a vibrant community through responsible land use, and enhance Crozet's natural beauty, existing natural resources, and the surrounding rural areas. Do you believe these pillars are of equal importance, and how would you manage a rezoning request if the development does not support all 3 pillars?
I think they have to be equally addressed, and each person has a different priority, 1, 2, or 3, but any new application would need to meet criteria based on all of those issues. Are they respecting the natural resources of the area? Are they dealing with their own transportation impacts and perhaps improving others? Are they providing services to the greater community?
Yeah, that's a big question, and I think we're kind of dealing with the effects of that continuously over the last 4 years of all the developments have been pushed through. I know in particular, it seems like we're really inconsistent with the master plan right now in regards to infrastructure in particular. I'm sure there's going to be more environment questions and we can get into that later. But as I just got a flyer in the mail today for Montclair, and there is going to be a need for a roundabout and an intersection next to Montclair. And it's just one of those things when you are already lagging so far behind the infrastructure, when something like Montclair comes forward, how can you possibly vote yes to that when there's already going to be another roundabout needed next to the, yeah, thank you.
For candidate Rykal, how should the county prioritize and fund the $39.5 million necessary to complete the Eastern Avenue connector?
Yeah, that was a surprise for those that aren't aware. It was a critically important piece of infrastructure for Crozet. It was a third way in and out to be able to maneuver around, and it's something that we've been talking about planning for 20 years. And the number has increasingly skyrocketed over that same amount of time. And recently we found out that it was going to be $39.5 million. And the county came forward and said, hey, let's not do it. So the plan as of right now is it's never going to be done. That's the reality we're facing. Let's just say it's not going to be done for the next 20 years. But you hit it right on the head with it's the priorities. That's what the county budget is for. It's you make infrastructure the first priority. That's the first money out of the bucket for the safety of the community. That's what you need to spend the money on.
Supervisor Mallek.
Thank you. The Eastern Avenue project is not canceled. It is being redesigned, remastered, and perhaps relocated in an effort to reduce cost. But that is all the information which is available today. And I was shocked in June to learn that a lot of years of effort had come to that hurdle. It is a very important project to move public safety vehicles and residents north and south in that third link. But this is an example of how there are other agencies in local government, beyond local government, who have a role in all of these activities. The local government gets to work within its range of authority, but has to rely on the rules of others to create those boundaries. I will push the boundary as far as I can to make sure that we get the very best projects which we can. And I have certainly not given up on this one. Thank you.
All right, the next question will start with Supervisor Mallek. This is a finance-related question. Give me 1 second, it's handwritten. For fiscal year '22, what percent of Albemarle County revenue came from the Whitehall District? What percent of fiscal year '22 budget was allocated to Whitehall District projects?
Well, that was 2 fiscal years ago, and I do not have those answers readily available. I'm glad to get them, but I do not have those with me today.
Yeah, I'm going to lean on her expertise here, but I think the point of the question might be something to the effect of, is Crozet as a growth area getting the things it needs from the budget? Because we have to recall that when it was designated a growth area, at the time, Crozet was a peach field in the middle of nowhere. All the other growth areas are around the urban ring along 29. There was just more infrastructure needed for Crozet when this whole thing started. So delaying infrastructure for 20 years just compounded the problems.
Okay, this question is for candidate Rykal, and it is a growth question. Your decisions now will impact citizens in the future. What do you envision our district/county will look like a decade from now?
Crozet's population is somewhere between 11 and 12,000 right now. With the developments of Old Dominion, Pleasant Green, Glenbrook, we're going to be cruising into 15, 16,000 here in just the next couple of years. If we keep going like we have been going, so that number is going to shoot way above that. That's the point. We can't keep doing the same thing. Something's broken, and we need fundamental change.
Well, the census block numbers for the population is about 9,800 right now, which is a lot of people, and it's a large increase compared to the 2,500 from 10 years earlier, or from 2004, excuse me. And what the community is going to look like is in many ways up to our citizenry. This is the time when the comprehensive plan is being worked on, and that is the guidebook for future decisions. and on which ordinances are based and on which financial decisions are made. And it is very important that each of you be involved in that process and share your views about what you would like to be the priorities for this. Are you concerned about rural area expansion, growth area expansion? I do not want that to happen, and never have. Are you concerned about increasing commercial in the crossroads communities? I do not. There are many, many questions you need to answer. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to start again with Supervisor. I start with Supervisor Mallek, and Bill starts with candidate Rykal. So I think you guys have figured that out at this point. All right, this is a leadership question. The Whitehall Supervisor is 1 vote out of 6 on the Admiral County Board of Supervisors. How do you plan to work with other supervisors to find common ground and make decisions in the best interest of the Crozet Whitehall community?
Establishing trust and building relationships with colleagues on the Board of Supervisors is incredibly important and challenging, because each of the districts has very different needs and has different perspectives on what is the most important. There may be 6 people, but there are 6 different perspectives on almost every issue. So that is something that requires constant tending, and also to be very persuasive about the needs for each district. There is a lot of respect, not total, for the sitting supervisor in a particular district. I have been overvoted quite a few times, and I have voted against the stated wish of the supervisor in another district when it was against the ordinances which have been adopted. So working together is incredibly important, and we all need to have that positive collegiality, that civil behavior. Thank you.
I think we've all heard this narrative quite a bit, that it's 1 of 6 votes, and it's a really tough thing. And I agree, this is maybe the most crucial part, a skill set you need to bring to the table, is to be able to work with people in a cooperative manner going forward. The tough part is we feel that it's not 1 of 6, that it's 6 against 0 against Crozet. You can look at the last Crozet master plan that Supervisor Mallek voted yes on. The plan was terrible. The community was saying it wasn't good for Crozet. It was a 5-to-1 vote, but that 1 vote was a supervisor who used to live in Crozet and moved for all the reasons that I'm running right now. So I don't know where this narrative comes from, that sometimes it's hard to work with the other supervisors when you find yourself in the majority.
Candidate Rykal, this is a question on the environment. What will you do to protect and improve our streams and waterways, trees and green space, and air quality?
That's a big question. I think we've all seen that this is a problem that's been getting worse and worse and worse over the last 10 years. And there's a paradox to it, because nobody would say, hey, if you come in here and you build thousands of houses and you put thousands more of cars on the road, that's going to be a really great thing for the environment. So I think we have a sustained period of some irresponsible growth where we weren't a good steward to the environment. And you can do some things. There were some loopholes in the WPO that you could have closed up. The master plan reduced a lot of the green space. And then frankly, we need to build sidewalks so we can get people out of their cars and commute around town. This is pretty simple.
Thank you. The Water Protection Ordinance is being re-empowered with the Street Health Initiative, which is removing the 10,000 square foot disturbance threshold for regulation. This is going to be a very impactful decision and progress for our street health. When we've had small amounts of disturbance being allowed to happen without regulation, then that has caused a lot of our incremental damage to our streams. But our streams, our air quality, our water quality, our natural resources, those are chapters that need to be advocated for by citizenry, coming to meetings, talking about how important it is. One voice does not solve the problem alone, and need lots of reinforcement from each of you about the natural resources chapter in the comprehensive plan being important and getting that right to the front of the line. Thank you.
Supervisor Mallek, what are your thoughts for plans to manage traffic flow in Crozet and 250 to Charlottesville?
That is one element where there is a small amount of good news. After the plans for the trestle roundabout, that's the 240, 250, 680 intersection, disappeared off of the radar in VDOT during COVID, I was able to work with the senior VDOT leadership to reinvigorate that project and get it inserted into an existing project which will begin design and procurement in early winter of 2024. There are 2 meetings upcoming to which all of you should attend and learn about the details and share any views which you have. On the 19th of September at the Armory at 5 to 7, and at the 21st of September at the Senior Center from 5 to 7 will be the open house for all 6 of the projects in the bundle. And I do hope that you will learn about this particular improvement which is on the way in. Thank you.
Yeah, this is one of those things that maybe you have to live here to experience. The traffic is just terrible. We've been talking about the 240, 250 roundabout for years. It's been funded for 4 years. We're still talking about it going into another election. The Crozet Master Plan did a really good traffic study, and it's buried way in the back. It's super boring to read, but what it says is there's gridlock traffic, and we all know to be true, throughout Crozet, and you need roundabouts to help alleviate the traffic. This goes back to the infrastructure roundabout problem, and you need to, maybe you just need to be sitting in the traffic, frustrated about living in a small town and having to sit in 30 minutes of traffic trying to get into Charlottesville to really push, but that's the answer.
This question is on leadership for candidate Rykal. Why are you running for the Board of Supervisors? What do you consider to be the most pressing issues facing our community?
I'm running because Crozet is my home. I'm raising my family here. But there's no higher calling, so I'm running for all of us. The most pressing issues, I think I've tried to articulate them well so far, but it's infrastructure that's a crucial need, and it hits on many different things. Sidewalks get people out of cars. It's good for the environment. Roundabouts help alleviate the traffic. Some of our kids are out here playing Frogger in the streets with traffic, and it's just dangerous right now. We really need to emphasize the safety of this community going forward.
I will agree that safety is absolutely the highest priority. And I will help you all to understand that all of these projects dealing with VDOT take years to plan. On the list now, but not yet funded, are roundabout improvements at Miller School Road and at Western Albemarle High School. I have been on monthly meetings with senior staff at VDOT working on ways that the Miller School, that the WAS and Old Trail Drive light can be managed differently to reduce those traffic items. And so you're absolutely right that there are many traffic issues which create lots of misery for all of the residents here and the people who visit here. I am running because I care about this community. I care about them individually as well as community-wide. Work to do to finish the projects that have needed to be wrapped up, to make sure the street health initiative gets done, to make sure the rural area and the natural resources in the comprehensive plan get adopted. Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Mallek, our next question is one on the environment. Had it not been for Crozet United, developers would have buried a stream and built houses on top of it. How will you stop the next environmental violation from occurring?
I was right there with them the whole time, advocating for stopping the original and overturning the original decision, saying that it was okay to do that. A lot of that is not public, but there are lots of exchanges with staff to step up to do that. There are strengthening rules, as I mentioned, the Street Health Initiative, which is coming forward to the board this winter, which will create much more structure and much more predictability for both applicants or realtors or homeowners, that buffers exist, that buffers don't go away if there's a pipe in the ground. And therefore, the initiative to do street destruction goes away. So we definitely need to put our rules back to the way they were before 2014 in order to strengthen our water quality protections. Thank you.
To catch everybody up on this particular issue, this was over in Montclair. They piped the stream to remove the stream buffer so they could put in more housing on further zoning requests. And Crozet Unit, I know there's representatives out there. Thank you, that was a citizen-led initiative to push it over the line because everyone felt like that was the only way it was going to get done. I think it's great to be addressing the problems that are with the current WPO. I think there's an issue because these problems, in particular with burying a stream and piping it in, those loopholes were brought up years ago, and there simply just wasn't action taken to close the loophole. So my fear of, even with the new riparian buffer, if a deficiency is brought up, when is the action actually going to happen to fix it? With me, it'll happen right away when it gets brought up from the citizens.
For candidate Rykal, this is a finance question. Please share your thoughts on real estate tax relief for seniors and disabled. Expand eligibility by removing net worth requirement. I think that's a question.
Okay. I'm actually pretty familiar with it. This petition was going around multiple places to include Parkway Pharmacy. But yes, right now there is the software set up in place where you put forward all of your assets to be able to get the tax break on your taxes. And there's a way to simplify it where it just turns into yearly income. And there are stories of people who don't make a lot of money year over year, but let's just say are land rich, maybe it was given to them by their family. I think you should put forward real effort when it comes to helping those of us that are in maybe the toughest of positions, and that's going to be our elderly and fixed income people and people with disabilities.
Thank you. When the residents of Whitehall brought this proposal to the board a year ago, I supported it then. It is perfectly within the rules of the authority of the county to use one or the other of the guidelines. We are not required to use both, which is the current plan. The current plan may have been designed to keep eligibility low, but that has never been my approach. I have carried the applications with me in my car and shared them with church members and neighbors to try to increase the availability, the awareness of people that they may qualify for this very important program. So the description that you do not have to supply all of your extra information for your net worth simplifies the administration from the staff's point of view and makes it very much a dollars report using IRS forms to be able to qualify. I heartily support this and will be pursuing it again at the board this fall.
All right, Supervisor Mallek, this is a question about growth. What is your definition of responsible growth?
Well, when I was little, at zero population growth meant that it was about the same number of births as people who passed away. And the reality is that this community, particularly in Crozet and Albemarle County as a whole, is tremendously desirable for people who wish, perhaps came here to the university and when they graduated said, oh, let's move back when we retire. Many, many people do that today. Many people have found they can work on their laptop and live anywhere they want. All of these factors have created a demand, which is driving up the prices of real estate and also making a buyer available for every single unit which is built. This has created incredible pressure on the county as a whole. So the growth rates which we have had historically approximately 1% to 1.5%, still means 15,000 people every 10 years. It's a lot of people. Thank you.
The questions for responsible growth. In a word, safety. If the community is safe, then you can proceed to grow. It's great in the comprehensive plan. I think it's strategy 9C, something to that effect, where it talks about when you're considered upzoning parcels that come before you, you need to look at the infrastructure of the community, the safety, school capacities, and all that. So I think the strategy is right there. You just implement that exact strategy for responsible growth.
This is for candidate Rykal. This is the category is infrastructure. Our Board of Supervisors, are you opposed to building tall cell towers? And if yes, is it because you believe they cause adverse health effects?
I've never considered cell phone towers for my health, so I'll just go around that one. But you're talking about infrastructure, and I want to point out, because there was something that was said, and it's something that we hear quite a bit about how many things need to happen to get a sidewalk built. I just want to point out that you can build a sidewalk here at the county, it can be locally funded and administered. That's not a problem.
I'm sorry. All right. So you asked about cell towers.
Yes.
Please repeat the question.
Are you opposed to building tall cell towers? And if yes, is it because you believe they cause adverse health effects?
I've certainly read a lot about potential adverse health effects from RF radiation, for sure. But the reason that the county cannot use that reason for a siting decision is because of an FCC ruling, which is in place. We have an ordinance now that limits the height of the towers to be close to the top of the nearest tree. This is to minimize the visibility, and that is the ordinance on which our decisions are measured. So that is the measure that I use when I'm looking at a new application, the ordinance which is adopted.
All right, Supervisor Mallek, this is a question on the environment. I didn't write this question, but it's written in first person. I can make it a plural, or I can read it as is. I moved to Crozet for its trails, streams, wildlife, native trees, and the ability to see the night sky without the light pollution found in cities. Yet each year, I see more and more of these natural resources disappear. How will you protect remaining natural areas in Crozet?
Well, the most recent master plan did not reduce green space, but it did re-describe green space to be places which are off limits to development, period, rather than something that could be developed in the future as it had been described earlier. The light pollution, the dark skies initiative is just one of many elements which all need to be upgraded as part of our comprehensive plan. I've mentioned that many times, but it is the basis for future decision-making for these items. The light pollution is dangerous for wildlife as well as for people, and I definitely support adopting stronger regulations for that, especially regarding LED bulbs, which do not meet the same standard as the old incandescent numbers.
It all goes back to the master plan, because that gets fed into the comprehensive plan. I know we're talking about green space wasn't removed, it was simply redefined so it could be built on, something to that effect. What we need the master plan to do is to protect our resources. So we need to get in there immediately. It's supposed to be coming up here just in a couple of years, but this needs to happen day one on the first term to start readdressing the master plan that couldn't quite figure out why it got pushed through in the first place.
So for candidate Rykal, this is a finance question. The tax rate was increased when the housing market was down. What is your position on future tax increases if property values continue to rise?
Well, I'm just the same as everybody else. That last, I don't know if they were talking about this, last tax year, it went up a crazy amount, and it happened the year before that too. Like, it hurts. It hurts when you get those kind of tax bills in the mail. And it doesn't just hurt us, because money coming out of our pockets doesn't just stop with us. We have to readdress it. It's probably one less beer at Pier Inn, less pizza at Sal's, less cloches and coffee at Praha. So yeah, it's a serious thing. If there's going to be huge jumps in tax assessments, we need to make sure that people and local businesses aren't hurting because of it.
Thank you. The difficulty with this question is how we can address the capital projects which everyone in this room needs to have built. The sidewalks, the new fire engines, the new schools. These are all elements of great expense. And when there is a capital budget ready to go, many projects were already begun and their prices had increased. That was the reason that I voted in favor of the maintenance of the tax rate as it was. Otherwise, our capital project would have been slowed dramatically down as it was in 2009 and 10, when the majority at that time voted to reduce the tax rate, give each landowner a small $50 or less for an average house. But it stopped $100 million of investment in capital projects, all of which are needed in this area.
Supervisor, sorry. Logistics. I was about to read Bill's question. I'm going to just answer the same question. Okay, here we go. This is a question about growth. What specific steps have you taken or will you take to increase the amount of affordable housing being built or made available in Crozet?
Thank you. I have been advocating for, ever since the Housing Albemarle project was brought forward, this is to establish a new housing policy, that the units which are provided as part of our affordable housing project need to be for people of incomes lower than 60% average median income, not the 88 to 120%. We have many, many residents who are of lower average income who need a place to live. So lowering the units to be a mandatory 20% of the units, this is not a negotiation anymore, but a mandatory 20%, and that the units must stay affordable for 30 years. Those are two very big changes which are being incorporated now in the housing project, and I support those.
And with that, we have the last question.
I have an answer.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry. Yeah, over the last 16, 20 years, Crozet probably would look a lot different. There should have been about 300 affordable housing units built and then passed along. But it was something to the effect of less than a dozen. Crozet already looks a lot different if just those numbers are actually accounted for. And I think that's what this issue is right now. It's just simply a lack of accountability. We're going to have multiple opportunities to take the same swipe at this 15% affordable housing proffer that already exists and has existed. Old Dominion is going to get built out. There's going to be 15 affordable housing units built there. If elected, I care. I'm going to make sure that they get done.
Okay, here we go. This is my first time, so I'm kind of a little bit embarrassed and nervous. So, sorry. Now we're doing it. Oh, thanks. Now we're doing the questions. Now I have to say, for what I do, I live by the second, like when I'm live on the air, and I think you guys probably feel the same way. Isn't it great that no one went over time? I'm very impressed with you guys. I wish every presidential debate would be that cordial. Don't we all? You each have 1 minute to wrap up who you are, what you want to do. And I think we're really giving it first.
So this is closing. I see. All right. Well, thank you. I offer the community full-time effort, 40, 50 hours per week, answering questions and working to resolve calls for noise, development process, potholes, speeding, all issues of quality of life for everyone. I will appreciate hearing from each of you because there are inconsistencies in answers tonight that I would love to address, but in a minute we'll not be able to do that. But I will say that protection, as far as for affordable housing, protection of our existing affordable units, naturally occurring affordable units in our neighborhoods is an incredibly high priority because we need people to be able to stay in their homes. In the same way that we want to increase the eligibility for lower income and disabled and senior property tax waivers. There are many, many issues that have to be dealt with, and I count on all of you to study them all and make good decisions. And I thank you very much for being here tonight. I ask you to vote on November 7th also. Thank you.
Yes, concur. Yeah, no, vote November 7th. That's important. Clearly, we couldn't cover everything. This happened so quickly. We didn't even talk about downtown Crozet initiative. How many millions and how many years have that been going on? And just a couple weekends ago, I was down there. The place is literally done. We filled up 2 truckloads full of garbage. There's so many problems happening in Crozet, and maybe you just need to be from Crozet to actually understand them. We've all seen what bad leaders look like, and the common trait is a lack of accountability. Good leaders are accountable. They listen, they support, they engage, they act, and then they lift everybody up. It's really what I'm striving for. I want to represent you, Crozet, I really do. But I can't do it alone. I need all of you. I need you to talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors. Please spread the word, because together we can do this. Thank you.
So we get to double our pleasure and double our fun because we have 4 candidates for the school board, and I'm introducing them. This was determined by coin toss. And who we have with us, first off is, this is the order in which they will go for their introductions, correct? Okay. And they each 2 minutes, just for the other candidates. And I'm going to go ahead and in this order, which was again determined by coin toss. Allison Spillman is here, as well as Meg Bryce, and Rebecca Berlin, and, sorry, I'm reading 2 different places at the same time, Joann McDermid. So we're going to go in that order, and the same rules, of course, apply. Be civil, watch out for the noise, squeaking chairs and all that. And as I'm proud to report that the words about asking that we all be civil were absolutely useless. It was wonderful. And I hope we'll keep it that way. So you'll get 2 minutes to introduce yourselves, and let's begin.
Great. Making sure it works. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Crozet Gazette and the Crozet Leadership Team for having us here tonight. It's really impressive. My name is Allison Spillman. I'm running for the Albemarle County School Board at-large seat, which means it's a countywide representative. I have 5 kids in Albemarle County schools, ranging in age from 2nd grade all the way up to a senior at Western Albemarle. My kids run the gamut of experiences. I have a neurodivergent child with a really extensive IEP. I have a child who suffers from some mental health issues that were extremely exacerbated with COVID. I have a kid that plays football, and that kid's twin sister is my trans daughter. I'm a former business owner and chief operating officer. At one point I had about 150 employees. So I have a lot of experience with finance and budgeting and process improvement, which I really think would be a huge asset to our current board. I served on a very active PTO that at the time had a budget of about $350,000. So I really learned how to operate a school and what goes into a successful school. And then my current passion project is I'm on the Board of Directors of a nonprofit here in Charlottesville called Reclaim Hope Initiative, which helps families that are navigating foster care adoption and children with disabilities, and it's near and dear to our family's heart. I care really deeply about our public schools, and I'm personally invested in making sure that they are successful. That's why I decided to run. I want to ensure that all students are safe and healthy and can thrive in our public schools. Unfortunately, there's a really real threat that is being taken in our schools where our kids are being endangered and their freedoms and their safeties are being taken away. This political agenda is looking to ban books and whitewash history, and I refuse to allow that to happen, and I think I'm the right person to stand up for it. And finally, I want to ensure that we take care of our teachers and staff. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Meg Bryce. I first want to thank the Crozet Leadership Team. You all saw a need and you pulled this event together very quickly, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak to the community. By way of introduction, I am a wife. My very patient husband, who only has himself to blame because he's the first one to tell me to run for school board, is here. I have 4 young children. I have a PhD in cognitive psychology, which means I spend way too long researching and studying how we learn and how we remember things, and that has translated into my being intensely interested in education. So I'm passionate about learning, I'm passionate about education. I now teach undergraduate psychology at UEA in the Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies program. So while I'm not a K-12 teacher, I am a teacher, I am an educator, and I see students after they've gone through K-12. So I see the fruits of that. I see the good and the bad, and that's why I think what we're here tonight talking about is so very, very important. I want to touch on what I think is the elephant in the room, which is that I don't have children in public school. I did. I moved here. I moved to Ivy for our children to attend Murray Elementary, and they were there for 4 years, and I absolutely loved it. And then during COVID, I started watching school board meetings, and I became really shocked at what I saw. I became shocked by a school board that I felt was not listening to people, and I became so discouraged that my husband and I lost trust in the leadership in this district. So we made the really difficult decision to pull our children out of public school. Some people think that means that I'm not invested in public schools, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I'm so invested that rather than walking away and not looking back, I came back to fight. And I'm fighting to represent the people who feel that the district has lost its way, and I'm back to fight to make sure that every kid gets the best education possible.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rebecca Berlin. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm the current Rykal representative for the school board, and I'm running for re-election. I have worked in education for over 25 years as a teacher, as a coach, as a researcher, as a teacher preparation professor, and as an organizational leader of for-profit and not-for-profit education companies. And I've learned many, many things during the time. But the most important thing that I've learned is that you have to keep the student in the room whenever you are discussing education issues. Keep the student in the room. Keep the student in the forefront of your mind. So I'm asking each of you to do that tonight, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a grandparent, an empty nester, or a community member. I'm asking you to keep the 14,000 students in Albemarle County in the forefront of your mind. The special education student who is at Brownsville Elementary School, the third grader who's struggling to read at Crozet, the 8th grader who just came out and shared to her friends that she is trans at Henley, and the 11th grader at Western who is so excited to do work at Central One so that she can pursue her career and technical skills. Keep these students in the forefront of your mind while we talk tonight. What do they need? Who do they need? I put my name forward in December to join the board for these students. My own children, Thomas and Samantha, went to Broaduswood, Journey, and AHS. When they were young, I never had time to serve the school district. But I was honored to be selected, and I have learned so much. I have learned that we must continually ask the difficult questions, that we must continually dig into the data, and that we must not accept what has been done before. We need to do something different today. We must be willing to take these risks in order to get on the path of equitable outcomes for all children.
And you've reached your limit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Crozet Leadership Team. Thank you, attendees. Citizens of Whitehall District, you have a choice. Do you want to continue with the direction of the current board? A board that promises you everything and fails to deliver year after year on the most basic, the most fundamental aspects of public school education. I am adamant that the primary mandate is to educate children in core subjects. At the very top are math, reading, and writing. This triad forms the basis for all other learning. Middle and high school, we add writing, science, and history. And I'm backed up by this focus. Public school accreditation at the elementary level is on math and reading. We add history, science, and writing at the upper levels. The misaligned priorities of your current school board are an ongoing problem. Children have been educationally harmed by the decisions that were made during COVID. Yet, there is no sense of urgency. Continuing to promise everything while losing sight of the primary focus of public education has a cost. This cost will continue to be paid by too many Whitehall District students who graduate undereducated from our schools. Make no mistake, this board is making decisions that affect people's lives. All of us get the right to vote for the school board. And that is why your election decision matters.
Thank you. And now we begin with questions. Once again, these are chosen at random and submitted by the people here.
Spillman?
Yes.
We're going to start with you.
Okay.
This is a question about academics.
Okay.
Please describe in detail how you foresee a typical ideal day in the life of a Henley Middle School student.
Well, I have 2 students at Henley right now in 8th grade, so I would say that I am good at understanding what a day would look like. I think that there is a mix of strong academics and social-emotional skill building. I really would like to see a focus in our middle schools on learning executive functioning skills and comprehension skills that are going to set these students up for high school in order to take academically rigorous classes. But at the same time, we can't forget that middle school is a really tough age, socially and emotionally, and we need to give these students the resources and the mental health help in order to prepare themselves for high school. And in order to do that, we need to be investing more in our mental health resources in our middle schools to prepare them for high school. Thank you.
Well, first, I think it's important that students get to school, so we need to make sure that they have bus service, they get there on time. I think that, especially given COVID learning loss, we need to prioritize academics, core academics. We need to make sure that that is what we are delivering first. So any downtime in the schedule needs to be dedicated to catching kids up. It needs to be dedicated to remediation. I believe especially at the middle school level, students should have math and language arts every single day. We should prioritize that over electives so that they can get the rigorous education that they need. I think that deadlines and tests should be a part of middle school because that is the time when we need to train them to deal with stressful things so that they can thrive in high school and then in college. I see college students who have never had deadlines and who've had unlimited retakes on things, and they're an anxious mess.
I agree that we need to focus on core subjects such as reading, math, social studies, and science. One of the investments that the school board made this year is to put a reading specialist into every middle school, including Henley, to make sure that we are looking at learning loss. But I also believe that we need to support our students' mental health and future academic skills. So improving the counseling that we're providing to students so that they know the choices that are ahead of them. We have a number of amazing programs, community lab schools, Center One, career paths. Many students don't know about them. And I think one of the reasons is we need to spend more time supporting our students in understanding the choices that they make. Those choices may be college, those may be career and technical skills, and we need to make sure that they have the time to think about those things. Thank you.
So we start off first with, is that child even in school? Henley has a 14% absenteeism rate, chronic absenteeism. That's where a student misses more than 10% of the school days. So if we bypass that and they get to school, did they have to walk more than 1.5 miles? Because I've spoken to people, I've knocked at over 3,500 doors of residents throughout Whitehall District. Transportation is a real issue. If they had a bus, how long did they have to wait at school before school even started? And how long did they have to wait at the end of the day before they could get home? This student is already starting with issues. And if they're coming from a background where they've had to be on that bus for a long time, they're already starting tired and maybe stressed. So every minute that is a learning opportunity for that child in school needs to be focused on the core. That is the essential opportunity cost your time. Thank you.
This next question is for candidate Bryce. Transportation and bus. How do you propose to address the national school bus shortage locally, and does this proposal have evidence that it works in practice?
So this is one of the first issues that I started looking into after I declared my candidacy. In fact, the first thing that I did with my donation money was take bus drivers out for appetizers. And what I asked them was, what do you like about your job? What do you not like about it? What would it take to keep you in it? And what would it take for you to recommend your job to somebody else? Because our current employees should be our best advertisers. their first reaction was, nobody's ever asked us that before. So I think one way to improve transportation is to make sure that we are doing right by our current employees. They do not feel respected, they do not feel listened to by current leadership, and that has resulted in many, many drivers leaving. One of the very first things that I would do is restore their pay to a 12-month pay instead of a 9-month pay. This is something that is incredibly important to the drivers, and they have asked for it and been denied.
And your time has passed. Thank you.
As a working parent my entire life, I relied on school bus transportation as well. And I know how difficult it was for the 1,000 children who do not have bus transportation. I'm happy to share that it's at about 250, which is about 95% of our students. However, I know that is not enough. I know there are many students who have to walk 1.5 miles, and many families who have chosen not to. We need to continue to support our bus drivers, just as Meg Bryce shared. They need additional training, they need additional support, and they need to feel part of the community. That is why it is so important to make sure that we make them part of the community and make sure that they feel like they are reliable and that they are a wanted part of the school staff.
I too have talked to many bus drivers in our community, some that are very long-term bus drivers, 28 years plus and about to retire shortly. They felt a little freer to actually say what they thought. I also talked to drivers that are newer to the system. Without exception, they've said that the issue is not pay. They said, look at the other counties that have more staff. It's not about pay here, it is about the commissions. When we have the question of, are you offered a bus, yes or no? What happens when we do that? That brings us down to the most basic level of service. Instead of asking questions that are on the quality of service, we're still trying to scramble for the actual, do you have a bus, yes or no? We need to be asking quality questions. What is the engagement of those drivers? Are we able to retain them at levels that are comparable to others? Are they able to provide service?
And you've reached your limit. Thank you.
I ran into my kid's favorite bus driver last week, and he's one of the many bus drivers that I've talked to, and he's currently working at Chick-fil-A because it pays more and he doesn't have to deal with student behavior. And that's just an example of the things that I've heard when I've talked to the school bus drivers. I've worked with central office and the school board to try to get to the root of this issue, and even though it's a national issue, 100% of our students deserve to have transportation to school. In order for us to get to this long-term solution, we actually do need to pay our bus drivers a living wage. We all know in this room that it is expensive to live in Albemarle County, so we need to increase their wages, and the ones I've talked to actually do want that. We also need to deal with the discipline on the bus and have consistency across the board for how we're dealing with the issues that are on the bus so that our drivers can drive safely and get our students to school. Our students can't learn if they're not in school, so we've got to put these in place, and we need to listen to the bus drivers above everyone else.
All right, for this next question, we're going to start with Board Member Berlin. This is a question regarding leadership. What will you do to address the lack of transparency in ACPS?
Thank you for that question. I have 3 things that I've been focusing on since I started as a board member in January. Proactive, clear, concise, timely, transparent communication that is easy to find, it's easy to understand, and it's actionable. This is an example of what didn't happen to this extent is what happened in transportation. Focusing on clear channels of communication, decision-making, and accountability with leadership so that staff, teachers, and parents all know who to call and what leaders are taking ownership for those decisions and understand that when they make a decision, the buck stops there. And then there are clear metrics of accountability that are regularly reviewed at team and board meetings. And when we are not making progress, we take a rapid process to determine the root cause be a neutral arbiter and we look at those recommendations and make sure
And you've
we're
reached
meeting
your
those
limit.
demands.
Thank you. Lack of transparency is a real problem. It has real consequences to that. It creates a situation of mistrust of the community with the school. This can manifest where we hear rumors of safety issue at schools, at Henley Middle, at Western. The community doesn't know if the school is telling them the real truth. This is a problem. The other way that transparency manifests itself is when you issue surveys and you don't actually feel that you're being listened to. Are you being transparent that the decision has actually already been made? Community engagement is not benefited from those sorts of transgressions. So transparency is absolutely needed, both at the school level, but also at the board level.
With all 5 of my kids in public school, I really share in this frustration with the central office and the lack of communication and transparency. It's a really big issue, and it has increased the amount of distrust within our community tenfold. And it's not just with families, it's with teachers and staff members too. They feel like there's a fear of repercussion if they speak out or if they give a suggestion. We need to work together to try to find a way to talk through our issues. One solution I've given is creating an ombudsman position that's a neutral party that can serve to mediate between parents, teachers, and administration in the central office and has direct follow-up and guidelines to follow in returning communication. We also need to be responding to public comment and emails when someone gives public comment. There needs to be follow-up, that they are listening to what we're saying and that they are taking those actions that we have suggested, because we are the stakeholders in this and our opinion matters.
Gosh, I love this question. I couldn't have written this question. I swear I did not, but I'm very glad to get it. Lack of transparency from leadership is the very reason I do not have my children in public school right now. And what I would do to increase transparency on the school board is get on the school board. I would increase that transparency. That is my goal. I am looking out here and I see dozens of families that I know, and many of you no longer have your children in public school. I am not the minority in that. Many of you have made that decision to put your children in private school at great expense to yourselves, to homeschool your children at great trial and expense to your family, and you've done it because of a lack of trust in this leadership. So I am right there with you, and I am so dedicated to solving that problem.
This question is for candidate McDermid. It's on, the topic is diversity and inclusion. Do you support the ACPS anti-racism policy and culturally responsive teaching initiatives? Please explain your position.
Yeah, there's a real problem in our schools. When you look at this most recent data, Albemarle County Public Schools as a division, if you compare the students who are Black versus their counterparts in the rest of the state, and you look at 11 different courses across elementary, middle, and high school, in our district, they're doing worse, far worse than their counterparts in the rest of the state. It is the same for Hispanic students. It is the same for Asian students. They are all doing worse here. But that's not all. It's also economic disadvantaged students who are doing far worse. That's a problem. So if our policies were working, that would be showing some improvement. It's not. I agree with the Bellwether report recommendations. A lot of them are very good.
And you've reached your max, thank you. I've had a little, I guess, hairy eyeball just for a general reminder about silence until the final applause. But I will also say, I think we're doing a great job.
Look, I think culturally responsive teaching is important because our students and our teachers deserve to see themselves in the curriculum that we're teaching. We have a beautifully diverse community that deserves to be celebrated. And I think that our anti-racism policy is intended to ensure that we can celebrate every different background in our schools. There's not a trade-off between DEI responsive teaching. In fact, I would argue that you need one to have the other. You cannot have a strong academic program if you are not worried and focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is the role of our public schools to make sure that every child, regardless of race or socioeconomic background or gender identity, has a safe learning environment and can thrive in our public schools. And the only way to do that is to have a program that ensures that we do not have systemic racism, which was very apparent in the Bellwether report, that Albemarle County schools are full of systemic racism that we need to deal with.
So I do not support these policies. In 2020, Black students in our district were passing, the third grade Black students in our district were passing the reading test at a rate of 60%. The next year, they were passing the reading test at a rate of 39%. This past year, Black students in our district only passed the third grade reading test at a rate of 31%. I think that's shameful. These policies have been in place for several years, and we're looking at the results of them. It is not serving the population that it is meant to serve. So if something is not working, you stop doing it. The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results. It is true that we have a beautifully diverse county. The best way to honor and celebrate that diversity is to make sure that you are doing the first job of a public school system, which is to educate each child in the school system.
I support our anti-racism and our cultural responsive teaching program 150%. Every child, and when I say every child, I mean every child, needs to see themselves as a successful learner in our classrooms. The anti-racism and CRT program are at the bottom of that. That's the floor. As the Bellwether report said, we have a long history, both in this country and in the school division, of systemic racism. And we need to address it, and we need to address it now. We need to address it, as they said in the Bellwether report, with rigor for those students, support for those students, which the current board is doing through 10 additional special education positions, 10 additional ESOL positions, and 36.75 reading specialists. So yes, I support those policies, and they need to be the foundation so that every child is seen and heard and feels safe in our community.
So we're starting again at the end of the table here with Ms. Spillman. So candidate Spillman, this is a question about gun safety. Bear with me, it's handwritten.
Sure.
Gun owners know how important it is to securely store guns at home, but multiple studies have shown that millions of kids live in a home with an unsecured firearm. Would you work to make resources available to our community, like providing gun locks to parents or adding a page to the ACPS website about gun storage and suicide prevention resources?
Yeah, this is a really important topic and a personal one to me. I'm proud to be a Moms Demand Action Gun Sense candidate. I have a friend that was murdered in Charlottesville due to gun violence, and so it is deeply personal to me. I have committed since the beginning of my candidacy to implementing the Be Smart gun safety program, which will allow us to teach our students and our families about secure and safe gun storage. Gun violence is the #1 killer of kids in the United States, more than cancer, more than anything else. So this is imperative that we focus on secure and safe gun storage so that we can't even get those guns into school. It's not about not having guns at home, it's about making sure that they're safe so that our kids can be at school, because our job as a public school is to make sure that our kids are safe and healthy and thriving, and if they have access to a gun to bring to school, then we are not doing our jobs.
If I thought that giving families locks or adding a tab on the website would decrease gun violence in our schools, I would absolutely advocate for that. But I don't think that's going to move the needle on this issue at all. Public schools can't control what goes on in somebody's home. It's true, gun owners should be responsible gun owners, and everybody should teach their child about firearm safety. But we cannot control that. control is what we can control is the safety in a school. So I would advocate for bringing SROs back into schools. I know many, many parents who are so fearful dropping their kids off at school every day, and SROs were removed by the current school board in 2021 against the wishes of the community and against the wishes of students. I strongly advocate for bringing them back.
Estimates show that we have over 400 million guns in the U.S., with over 2.5 million being produced each year, and 4.6, the number for that question, 4.6 million children live in a home with a loaded and unlocked gun. So of course I support the Be Safe Gun Safety Program in providing free gun locks to all ACPS families and all families in Oklahoma County, including the families of our preschool students. As a mother, my heart sinks every time I get a call that my daughter, who's in the audience today, is in lockdown. Our children and teachers do not deserve to be on the front lines. I urge you to just support state candidates who are endorsed by Moms Demand Action, as this is a larger problem than schools cannot solve it themselves.
So once again, I look to my role as a school board member. As a school board member, my role is policy development, budget oversight, superintendent oversight, and disciplinary action. We have a policy for no weapons in school. If that policy is not implemented with fidelity, then I would seek to rectify that. If we're talking about now making policy within the community, that is not our role. I'd be willing to go with Brad Rykal, who's a veteran and probably knows a lot about gun safety, if he's willing to go in tandem and do a community event. But I don't think it's the role of the school board member to start trying to implement policy in the community. I agree SROs are needed in the school, and not just for the preventative role that they offer in terms of preventing incidents from occurring, but also for being the eyes and the ears of the community in that school. We don't know what's going on.
This next question is for candidate Bryce. It's on teacher pay and benefits retention. Do you support the Albemarle Education Association's efforts to secure collective bargaining rights for ACPS staff members? Please explain your position.
People who suggest that collective bargaining is a quick fix for teacher satisfaction are not being honest. Collective bargaining is not a quick fix for anything. And I think to correctly address the issue of teacher retention and teacher recruitment and teacher satisfaction, we need to identify the problem first. Teachers, just like bus drivers, just like parents, don't feel respected, they don't feel listened to. That is not something that's going to be fixed by collective bargaining. One thing that I've learned is that ACPS does not conduct exit interviews. We've had a lot of teachers leave over the past few years. If we aren't asking them why they're leaving, we are missing a lot, because they could tell us a lot about what led to their decision and what might have kept them here.
When I first joined the board, I spent my first 2 months talking with teachers and staff members about what they needed. And one of the first things that came to their mouth was collective bargaining. So that's why it was important to me to support it when it came to a revote. And I do want to clarify a few things about where we are in the collective bargaining process and the fact that the current school board all unanimously supports it and wants to continue negotiating. When the two sides sat down, we agreed to a set of rules, and one of those rules was that we would table anything that we could not come to an immediate agreement on. That's a very common practice in negotiation. That team had agreed to over 70 pieces of information. When two things came up in the last meeting, instead of tabling them, which was part of the current process, the AEA walked out. And I want to speak to any member of the AEA and any supporter of the AEA that we support you and want you to come back to the table.
Thank you. So So I've not been privy to the inside negotiations as to what's been going on. I just know that I've spoken to people on both sides. What we have to remember here, as a school board member, I'm answerable to the people of Whitehall District. I'm not answerable to the teachers alone, I'm not answerable to the students alone, and there's more than just the teachers and the administrators involved in that equation. No one has asked the community, do you agree with collective bargaining? Do you think that this is a good idea in our school system? Do you think that this will solve the problems that are being put forth? I've heard very mixed results on that. And a lot of the things that they're seeking to resolve can probably be resolved in very interesting other ways. So I'm agnostic on it, I'm willing to listen, but I don't really know what's in the collective bargaining agreement.
I don't think anyone has ever said that collective bargaining is actually a quick fix. I think it's a long-term solution to problems that have been going on that are plaguing our teachers, and that they are the ones that are asking to be represented in a collective bargaining agreement. I have supported collective bargaining from the beginning of my campaign. I've spoken publicly about it. I was saddened this week to learn that of the breakdown in negotiations between the AEA and the school board, and I'm hopeful that they can come back to the table. Virginia teachers are some of the lowest paid in our entire country. Our teachers deserve to be paid what they are worth, which is a lot more than they're being paid right now, and they deserve benefits, and so do our staff. Our bus drivers, same thing. We need not only to attract, but to retain these teachers. They deserve a seat at the table, they deserve to have their voices heard, and they deserve to fight for their own wages and benefits and help themselves fight for themselves. So please, consider it, because we owe it to our teachers and staff in order to have a strong public school system.
All right, Board Member Berlin, we're going to start with you for this question. This is a question about school overcrowding. It's a long one. All right. Admiral High School, Western Admiral High School, and Monticello High School are all at or over their designed capacity. The division's plans for Center 2 have a projected cost of $36 million and serve only 400 students. In addressing the issue of school overcrowding, do you feel that building small capacity satellite centers is an appropriate long-term approach? What are your thoughts on adding a fourth high school?
So if anyone hasn't read this report, it's totally public. It's from September 9, 2021, Long-Range Planning Advisory Committee recommendations. And it goes through each of our elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools about where they were in 2021 regarding overcrowding. And you guys know the answer to this, right? Headley's overcrowded, Western's overcrowded. We had to do some changes in Brownsville and Crozet because of overcrowding. Do you know the last time the school district built a school? 2002. My son wasn't even born yet. He's now a junior in college. So this is a long-term issue that we need to address. And we can't address it just with the school. We need to do it in partnership with our Board of Supervisors and our House delegates and our House senators. We need more funding for schools. So yes, Center 1 is a piece of the solution, but we also need a fourth high school. But to do that, we need the state and the community to come to the table with the significant number of resources that we need.
Thank you. So it's an interesting question, because on August 10th, the school board said that there would not be overcrowding in the high schools with a 10-year projection of enrollment. That was considering if you allow for trailers to be provided for schools, 8 at Western and 16 at Albemarle High. And when you add in Center 2 that's projected to come online in 2 years, they're saying that they don't have overcrowding. So I'm not quite sure where that discrepancy is. I will say about the small satellite schools, I like that idea. I would like to explore that idea to see what the implications are. Potentially the implications could be multiple in Whitehall District. We could have more community engagement. We could have more affordable housing in some of the outer areas of our region. We could have less transportation issues if children are being transported to more local schools. I really like the potential of that idea.
Look, I've got 5 kids in the schools. Several of them are in portables, or as they like to call them, cottages. And that's not a sustainable solution. And I think that Center 2 is great, but that's also not a sustainable solution. We need to build a 4th high school, but that involves fully funding our schools and having the resources available to pay for it. And my job as a school board member would be to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. I can tell you I would put money into school vouchers. I would keep the money in public schools and invest it in infrastructure so that our kids can be set up for success. And in order to do that, we're going to have to advocate enrichment for more funding for our schools, and then look at the bloat that's in the central office, reallocate funds so that we can fund more schools, get our kids out of cottages, and get our high schools to better numbers of student to teacher ratios.
So I echo what Dr. McDermid said, that in the last meeting on this, the district was actually saying that overcrowding would not be an issue in the future as it is now. So I can't commit to saying that I would agree to building a 4th high school without knowing more about that, projection. I do know that the role of the school board in addressing overcrowding is that each school board member appoints somebody to the long-range planning committee, and that committee is tasked with, making a proposal and making a recommendation to the district. I do like the idea of smaller centers. I think whenever we're faced with a problem like this that is quite large and is not going to be fixed immediately and that will cost millions of dollars, we need to start thinking of creative solutions. I know of a school district in Houston, for example, that started partnering with some organizations and facilities in the community.
We're back to candidate McDermid. The topic is academics. In light of declining standard of learning scores, what are your thoughts on the current ACPS grading guidelines for secondary schools, which include retakes on tests, 50% credit for doing no work, no graded homework, and no firm deadlines?
Sorry, guidance. Thank you. All right, well, thanks for that question. As I said, I've knocked at many thousands of doors across this district, and there's almost uniform consensus that parents do not like that. They don't know where their children stand. Teachers are not fond of it because it creates more work for them when students bunch up all of their test retaking. They're not able to give formative assessment in the same way. So there's many reasons why that policy does not seem to be accomplishing what it had been proposed to do. One of the things in the Bellwether report, and this is really the summary that I came away with from reading that instructional audit, was that if you have good teaching practices and you have student engagement and you have good curriculum, that you will have improved standards of learning results. That's what that report says, and that applies to all students. All students.
My senior in high school spent his freshman year of high school out of school during COVID. So we all experienced this collective trauma, and so I understand at the time why we implemented our current grading policies. Unfortunately, we're back to the point where we need, to try to move past that with the right resources in place. I think it's time to start holding our kids accountable, my son included. We need to make sure that they're being graded for their homework. They need to learn to advocate for themselves, though. We need to allow them to go and say, hey, I need an extension, I'm not going to get this done in time, and we need to be understanding and give that to them if they're advocating for themselves and they're turning their work in. But this is a bigger problem that doesn't just have quite a simple solution, but yes, I'm totally for getting back to holding our kids accountable so that they can be set up for success.
I think that these grading policies are an unmitigated disaster, and I have heard that from parents and teachers alike. Parents think this isn't the real world. Teachers think it is an incredible burden on them, and it time and time again, the phrase that I hear teachers is my hands are tied. Their hands are tied by bad policies. So I would reverse these policies. As an undergraduate instructor, I see what happens when kids are not held accountable at the middle school and high school level. If we talk about mental health issues, this is a great one. And we cannot expect them to learn how to deal with stress and overcome it if we don't give them the opportunity to do hard things.
So I think we found a question that we all can agree on. I agree that we need to hold our kids accountable. I believe we did the right thing at the right moment in time as we got out of COVID, that we had to give them some time. If you are a parent who has seen your child struggle on a daily basis with mental health issues, struggling to even get to school, the stress of having to turn something in at that point was enough to break them. And if you haven't been in those shoes, you can't talk about it. But now, yes, I agree that we need to hold our kids accountable. We need to prepare them for the future, but we need to do that in a way that provides them the support that they need. We need to continue supporting mental health, we need to continue supporting counseling, and we need to support our teachers in helping them understand when to grant an exception when there is a medical issue.
So I believe we're back to the beginning. So, candidates, this is a question about diversity and inclusion.
Okay?
How would you increase engagement from families/communities whose voices are typically heard from least by our division? An example provided here would be non-white families.
Yeah, I think this is a really important question and one that I've advocated for because, again, when we talk about our beautifully diverse community, we're also talking about underrepresented communities. There's a lot of people that speak on public comment or send emails, but I don't feel like they're representative of our entire community. I spent some time in Southwood this summer and really got a perspective on what these families are looking for and that they need an advocate on the school board that's willing to go and talk to them in their neighborhoods, learn about them, and be willing to fight for them. We need to have translators at every school board meeting so that those parents can come and actually speak and advocate for their kids. We need to be in the schools teaching them what rights they have to advocate for their kids. But you need a school board representative that has demonstrated that they're willing to do that, and I'm convinced that that's me.
So I've knocked on doors all over the county, and I've met an incredible number of immigrants, actually. And what I find with our immigrant population and our Black population and our Hispanic population is that a great number of them do not know how the district works. They don't know about the school board. They don't know about central office. Essentially, they don't know about their rights as parents. So I think that it is incredibly important for us to reach out to those communities, to tell them how they can become engaged, how they can make their voices heard. Because currently they feel that they have no voice in their children's education.
So this is something that's near and dear to my heart. Prior to my time on the school board, I led the National Center for Family, Parent, and Community Engagement for the Office of Head Start. And what we learned in that National Center was that we need to come to families where they are. So we need to meet them in their churches, in their neighborhoods, at the parks that they go to, at the laundromats that they go to, wherever they feel most comfortable. And as I've been one of the things I've been working on in my role in the school board is working with our Office of Community Engagement, particularly Eric Azari, to do that. So many times parents can't come to school. They don't have the transportation to get to school. They are working during school hours. So as school board members and as school leaders, we need to find them where they are. So there are research-based practices about how to do that, and we need to do that within our community on a consistent basis.
To be able to engage with the community, you need to have the respect of that community, first of all. And I agree, going to where they are located is the first step. And that's why, as I said, I've knocked on over 3,500 doors across this district. I've been down many, many roads where they said, we have never seen or heard from a school board member ever. So this is certainly a good start. But the thing is, it's not just during election season when you need to do that. You need to have that first interaction, then you need to follow it up. Speaking at public comment for many people is a very uncomfortable experience, and they just don't do it. You don't hear their voice. Emailing for other people who don't speak English or write English as their first language is also very uncomfortable and just not done. I think that we have a whole department of community engagement.
Thank you. Next one.
So we're back to candidate Bryce. This question is on the topic division leadership. Teachers, bus drivers, and parents have consistently expressed that they are not heard by the school board and ACPS administration. Do you believe this is a leadership problem?
I think leadership is the number one problem in our district right now. That is the common thread of everybody that I have talked to. I have been at this for 8 months. I have met with drivers and teachers and parents and students, and every single one of them expresses frustration with the current leadership. They expressed frustration with the superintendent, with the school board, with the director of transportation. And what I really want people to understand is when we talk about accountability, we need to know where that comes from. That is the job of the school board. The job of the school board is not to work in partnership with the superintendent, though that sounds quite lovely. That is not the job of the school board. The job of the school board is to hold them accountable. It is the job of the school board to hold the superintendent's office accountable for its failures, and that has not been happening for years, and that's how we find ourselves where we are right now.
As I've gone across the county, particularly in Rykal, listening to teachers and parents and students, I've heard the same thing. I agree with you. Teachers need a voice, staff need a voice, students need a voice. I believe we're doing our first steps to do that, but we have a long way to go. The school board needs to do a better job, and myself included. We need to make ourselves more available to the staff by being in schools, by being in community events. And as your representative, I commit to doing that because it is so important. Thank you.
The school board member answers to the people. Then they give the guidance, the vision, the strategic direction to the superintendent who operationalizes the policies and procedures for that school on a day-to-day basis. What we have here in our district is an inversion of that relationship. We have a weak and ineffective board who is failing to provide the oversight of the superintendent. The superintendent has inverted that relationship and essentially is dictating budget, policy, and other things to the school board. The school board is not listening to the people. That is the key issue, and that inversion of that relationship. If you change the superintendent, you still will have the same problem unless you change the board.
Yeah, I mean, I said before that I share your frustration with the central office, and that comes down to leadership. But I don't think that there is a simple solution to what appears to be a very complex issue and problem. I would need to get on the board and get in and get my hands dirty and figure out the root of these issues. My guess is that it doesn't necessarily just stop with the superintendent. It may involve an actual restructuring of the central office. My business experience gives me a ton of things to offer in that I went through a restructuring with my business and managed it, so I actually know how to do that. And I think that you need somebody with that experience if you're going to talk about making such sweeping or effective leadership changes. you know, as a school board member, that is our job, is to manage that leadership from the top all the way down.
All right, so Board Member Berlin, this is a question about academics. Given how worried parents are about academics, how would you prioritize resources for academics with resources for diversity and inclusion programs?
I believe we need to prioritize both. The first thing we need to do really is prioritize reading. As many of us have said, our reading scores are bad and gotten worse. And part of the reason for that is you can't teach reading online in Zoom for 18 months during the pandemic. Governor Youngkin passed the Virginia Literacy Act, which is providing a significant amount of funding to the school district. On Thursday, you will hear the process that we are going to take in stakeholder community engagement to push forward to look for a new reading program. We need to address our problem with the science of reading and make sure that our reading instruction includes that. We need to support teachers in learning a new curriculum, provide them professional development, and think about how do we restructure the reading instruction that we provide them through innovation.
Can you just repeat the full question again?
Absolutely. Given how worried parents are about academics, how would you prioritize resources for academics with resources for diversity and inclusion programs?
So again, in Whitehall District, the group that has the most struggle in school is children with economic disadvantages. That transcends all races, all ethnicities, all shapes, all sizes. If we're going to do better in Whitehall District, we need to be looking at, again, the recommendations of the Bellwether report. That is saying that if we have good teaching practices, good curricular resources, and student engagement by getting them to school and reducing those absenteeism rates, then we will probably be better off for all students. We need to look at supporting teachers to be able to differentiate. That's one of the recommendations. It's very hard, and that's why they're asking for that help. That will help with some of these issues. It's teaching to the standards. It's teaching with rigor. These are sort of the kind of staples of teaching.
The mission of our public schools is to provide an excellent education for all students. And so an investment in DEI is an investment in academic excellence for every student. As far as the resources go, I don't think that they are mutually exclusive where you have one at the expense of the other. I think that we need to be investing in universal pre-K programs so that all kids, when they enter kindergarten, have those literacy blocks and are ready to learn. I think we need to be funding even more reading interventionists than we have, so that by third grade, every child is reading at grade level, regardless of their race or identity. We need to invest in teacher training in the science of reading and get back to teaching phonics so that our kids can actually learn to read, and that's going to close a lot of those disparity gaps if we make the investment up front in a quality public education.
Okay, so you can't prioritize both. That's not how priorities work. So you need to elect school board members who will prioritize academic needs over everything else. In my door knocking, I knocked on the door, and a little girl answered, and she said, "Hold on, my dad's just waking up," and it was noon, and her dad came to the door, and he's a Chinese immigrant, and he told me that he was just waking up because he had worked an overnight shift at an assisted living facility so that he could afford the tutoring for his rising third grade daughter who is not reading well yet. I can assure you that that dad wants us to prioritize academics. And speaking of the reading program, so our reading program is not an approved program by the state. When our district learned that it was not approved, their reaction was to ask for an exemption. So rather than saying, "Oh, yikes, yeah, we really do need a new program," they asked for an exemption.
Okay, so we are at the last question, and we're starting with candidate McDermid. This is also on academics. Do you believe special education is funded adequately to community needs, and what, if any, changes would you make to ACPS's current approach to special education?
That's a real difficult issue. I know that students with disabilities, when you look at their SOL scores, for the students that are eligible to take the SOL exams or assessments with supports, they are not doing well across the board. And when I've spoken with teachers who are special educators or interventionists for that, they say that there's a number of reasons why those students are not doing as well. The parents also feel that they have to advocate very strongly to get the resources that are promised or that their students are actually entitled through their IEP program. I think that there's a disconnect there, and I think that there's, in essence, an adversarial relationship set up that is very difficult for parents to navigate. And is it a matter of more resources or effective use of them?
My sweet son Lee is adopted from foster care, and he has a whole host of issues that we have been advocating for him since the day we got him 6 years ago. And in Albemarle County Schools, I have been fighting for him for 4.5 years to get the resources that he deserves, and unfortunately, he still does not have them. This is not a problem that's unique to my family. There are 1,400 kids in ACPS that have a 504 or an IEP, and that is just the kids that have actually been able to be advocated for. There are hundreds of others out there that need services, and I am passionate about the fact that we are failing our SPED students left and right. My work with Reclaim Hope has led me to meet all of these different kids and these families, and we are not meeting their needs, and there needs to be a change from the very top. It is not our teachers, it is in the central office that problem lies.
I agree that we're failing our SPED kids, and that is yet another group that is below the state average. So if you're a parent of a child with special needs, you're worse off being in Albemarle County than you are in other areas of the state. I think that's a shame. The parents that I talk to feel strongly that their teachers should be compensated better for the unique skill set that they bring into the classroom and the unique challenges that they see in those classrooms. I know that our district has started offering a signing bonus to SPED teachers to recruit more teachers into the district. I think that's good, but I'd also like to compensate the teachers who've been working in the district for a very long time, because those people have the biggest hearts. I think the best place to start with this is by cutting some of the positions from central office. So we have 14,000 students in our district, and we have about 80 people in central office.
And that's the limit.
So my background is as an early childhood special education teacher and a teacher of children with autism, and I'm also a professor of special education. And one of the main reasons I actually came to put my name forward for the school board was because of the special education that Meg spoke about. And one of the first things I did was join the SEAC committee, which is the committee made up of parents from each of the schools in the county. We don't provide enough services for our children with disabilities, and their issues are getting more complex. And it is a county issue, but it's also a federal issue, because part of the question was about funding. And unfortunately, I don't have the numbers in front of me, only about 7% of our budget for special education comes from the federal government, even though it's a federal mandate. So the state and the school system has to make that up, which we absolutely positively need to do, because we need to serve all of those children and their families better.
Thank you. And with that, all the questions? Yeah. And with that, you come to the end of the questions, and they're good questions, and they're hard questions sometimes, and I think good work. So now we come to, you each have 1 minute to go ahead and put the icing on the cake.
I'll try. Thank you again for the opportunity to get to know all of us better. I want to ensure that our children all thrive in public schools and are given an excellent education that sets them up for success, regardless of their past or their path. If you want to learn more, a minute was not a lot of time to tell you about these issues that we're all very passionate about. I encourage you to read up on us, go to our social media pages and our websites. This election is crucial, and local elections matter more now than they ever have, and there is a lot at stake for our families in this particular race. So please tell your friends to vote. Early voting starts in just a few weeks on September 22nd, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Like every parent in here, I want my children to have the best chance at a good education. A couple years ago, my family decided that this was no longer possible in ACPS because of current leadership. Many people in the community have made that same decision or wondered the same and have been seriously considering it or simply wish that they could. Rather than walk away and wash my hands of this, I decided to come back and fight to fix the problems that I see in our district. If you're happy with how things are going, and if you like the direction that our district is headed, then you have a candidate for that. If, however, like me, you see major problems in this district, and you think we are headed in the wrong direction, then vote for the candidate who will fight for that. Vote for the candidate who will fight for the change and who will fight for your kids' education.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. I encourage everyone to come to the school board meeting on Thursday and every school board meeting on the 2nd and the 4th month. And also put your name forward for all of the important committees. There's so much interest in the school board at this meeting, and I want it to continue. I want your voices to be heard, and I want you to participate. It's hard work. Because one of the things I know is that to succeed in life, you need more than just basic ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. You need solid math and reading instruction that are important at all grade levels. We need to stabilize our students' foundational literacy skills, but we also need to go beyond the basics to support creative thinking, to support experiential learning, to support problem solving, innovation, to truly prepare our students for future success. We need to do this by giving our students the choice of the books that they read, by supporting arts and career technical education.
Thank you. It's ABC and 1, 2, 3 at the core. That's key. You know change is needed. You fear your schools are becoming unrecognizable. I will represent your local voice. I visited thousands of homes to learn your issues and, importantly, solutions that will work for you. I am not beholden to the political machinery pushing into this public office, an office meant to be nonpartisan and locally focused. Public education is too important to allow political monopolization of voices. My job has been making complex decisions. My approach is infused with data-guided logic and reasoning, balanced by genuine compassion. I did not get to the top of my career by being a group thinker. I got there by challenging narratives.
1 minute.